welcome to this Monday edition of the Monday extravaganza of Second City Sports. You're locked and loaded, and we're live in the living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss LaKeena McGee, which is she. I ain't City Brown. You better know it's me. You can follow yours surely on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow my Keena McGee on the Twitter, executes Keena IG.
Be sure to download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Please subscribe to our podcast. We are located at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We're on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And while you're at it, please give War Media a follow at WARR Media on all social media platforms. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinion, do our 2-hour extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show. You can definitely hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the up on the screen for you. But you decide to troll, indoor, do something silly, dumb, or stupid, I've given LaKeena full powers to give you folks Bill and Bip Boot.
Toodles.
But before we begin, shout out to the replay game and checking us out on the replay at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube pages. But most importantly, much love to our live game checking us out, LIVE, live in the living color, right now also on our Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube pages. Don't you ever forget our motto where we talk music, sports, entertainment, minus politics. We will always provide.
We invite you with some of the best here on Second City Sports. Of course, we'll talk Game 7 as there were 4 Game 7s throughout the NBA and Stanley Cup playoffs. Some thrillers, and we also had a couple of people that didn't rise to the occasion. We'll talk about that. A thrilling finish of the Kentucky Derby kind of went like neck and neck. So we'll talk about that. And, of course, Old School TV Monday. We also got, like the rest of the week in MLB. And so much more. But first, let's talk some Cubs. As the Cubs, failed to get the sweep against the Brewers. But unfortunately, the bigger story here is that Shota Imanaga had to pull the hamstring and had to leave in the middle of his start. It looks like he may miss a couple of games, maybe a couple of starts. So, Sid, what do you think?
Yeah, we talked about this during the offseason that the Cubs needed depth in their starting rotation due to the potential injuries that they could suffer from. You notice who's the current World Series champions, the LA Dodgers. They had all that depth last year in their starting rotation, and they barely got by winning the World Series over the Yankees. As we said in this offseason, LaKeena, how many times did we say that we said to Jed Hoyer, get an extra starter just in case Justice Hill and or Shota Imanaga, who was healthy last year, goes down. You have that extra starter in place, and it will solidify for the rest of the starting rotation. Now, even though the rest of the guys in that starting staff are pitching well, you don't know how long this is going to keep up. And we said this before we went live on air today. We know this Cubs offense, they have been very fun to watch, but they're going to go through some struggles. And if that starting pitcher doesn't hold up like it has in stretches over the last couple of years, I'm not going to say there's going to be doom and gloom, but it has the potential to be that way before the season really has gotten started.
So, and I think that, like you said, unfortunately, the Cubs, offense struggled yesterday. So, you gotta, if Shota does end up having to miss a start or two, that could be a problem too. So, we gotta guess all that could talk about just that and so much more. He is the terrific sports anchor reporter for WGNTV. He also co-hosts GN Sports on the weekends. We have him on the show before. It's been too long. So, the one, the only, the cool and terrific Mr. Chris Boden. Hey, Chris, how are you?
Hey,
LaKeena. Hey, Sid. How you guys doing today? Thanks for having me on. Glad we could finally do it. I know we've been jumping through some hoops over the last couple of weeks, but glad we could finally do this.
Yes.
yeah,
yes,
glad to have you back.
absolutely.
We're doing just great.
Good.
Yes. So, but I think the Cubs aren't doing so great too. After they did get the 2 out of 3 against the Brewers, but it looks like Shota might miss a start or two. So, if that's true, do you think the Cubs can sustain this?
Well, let's hope it's only a start or two. Yeah, hopefully they'll reveal a little bit more today. I know he was supposed to come back to town and get more imaging done, and right after I'm off with you guys, we're going to head over to Wrigley and hopefully get some more details. They'll provide some, and I think usually at the start of every homestand, Jed Hoyer usually talks whether that will be the case today or not. because it's only a 3-game homestand before they head out for New York next weekend. Hopefully we'll find out a little bit more information about the severity of that injury. And, if it's any extended amount of time, if we're looking at a month or more, depending on what it is, they're already relying on, wanting an extra starter with Justin Steele now gone for the year. That was your, at the very least, number 2 or 1B starter. And now if you lose your ace for any amount of time, yeah, the Cubs offense is great. They can make up for a lot of blemishes on this team with the way they've been hitting through the first 5-6 weeks of the season. But when you start getting into your meat and potatoes guys who you rely upon as, you can almost pencil in a win every time that they're on the mound with what they're usually able to give you. Now, Shota's out for a while. Okay, well, Matthew Boyd's been really good. Colin Ray's been, I think, better than expected. Ben Brown's been up and down as a young starter. We already know Javier Assad is going to be out. He was going to be one of those backup guys in case there was an issue with the starting rotation, if not a candidate himself heading to spring training. So there are some questions that Jed Hoyer is going to have to ask himself, and it's early. It's first week of May. And even if he wants to go shopping for another starter with another team, the price tag's probably going to be pretty high at this stage in order to convince one of those teams at this point of the season to give up on, what would be a solid starter and a solid replacement in the rotation, if not for Shota short term, for plugging in to Steele's spot long term in this rotation. So hopefully find some more answers here this afternoon before, say 4 or 5 o'clock today.
Yeah, speaking of finding a replacement, we know that the Cubs minor league system has these prospects, in particular in the pitching department. Is Cade Horton that answer, or will we find out? Well, I'm sure we'll find out later today when you're down there. Do you think Cade Horton will perhaps be that answer, at least in the short term, if Imanaga is not out for that long?
Yeah, definitely a possibility. He's off to a real strong start at Iowa, but we were talking about this, Caitlin Sharkey and I, on GN Sports last night. We were going over some of the candidates. Chris Flexen is a guy who took the ball every turn in the rotation last year for the Sox, and granted, a 3-15 record isn't what you're looking for, but let's also take into consideration that he was pitching for the White Sox. I think overall his earned run average was pretty decent last year. He kept the White Sox in games. So he made his Cubs debut coming out of the bullpen for Brown on Friday in Milwaukee. He's a guy who is certainly capable of doing that if you don't want to reach for the kid and expose him to the major leagues just yet. But Horton has been off to a great start. I think the 7th overall pick in the 2022 draft. You would think he's on the verge of breaking into the major leagues, and he's showing signs of that. But the other thing to consider is he was held to just 34 innings last year. He didn't pitch beyond Memorial Day last year because of a shoulder issue that came out. And then when he tried to come back later in the season, it acted up on him again. So they're having him take baby steps this year, and to throw him into the major leagues. And, if it's a spot starter too, that's one thing. But long term, I think since he got out of college, or maybe even in his senior year in college, the most he pitched in a season was 88 innings. And I think he's already up in the 23-24 range right now. Now, you would think, a kid who's 23, 24 years old will be able to handle that. But we all know how careful major league teams are now with some of their prized prospects, and especially pitchers, when they have had arm problems, just being extra careful with them. So, the stat line says Horton should be a guy you might be able to call up and rely upon. But in the back of your mind, you have to wonder if they do that, how long will they be able to do that? And that, I think, ties into how long Shota is going to be out as well.
Well, let's talk about the offense for a bit here, Chris, for the Cubs. PCA has been hitting the ball like crazy. Say has been contributing. Dansby Swanson. Everybody is actually, it's actually been a total team effort now. Can they keep it up? We know how the ebbs and flows are doing a 162-game season. We know how great this offense is, but can they sustain it?
Yeah, I don't see any reason why not. Let's also keep in mind that they're doing that without a third baseman in their lineup. That's usually a position where you see, if not high batting average, power sources, run production, and that remains a big question in this everyday lineup. But in terms of everybody else, with perhaps the exception of Dansby Swanson here early on, although he's been showing signs maybe over the past 4 or 5 games he might be breaking out of that first month slump, everyone else has been pretty reliable. The other thing to keep in mind, though, is when they've gone up against a tough pitcher, whether it's Freddie Peralta yesterday, the ace of his staff, last week, Aaron Nola for the Phillies, who is a great pitcher, was off to a horrible start this season. He seemed to find himself in that Sunday night game at Wrigley that prevented them from sweeping the Phillies in that particular series. So, they know how to rake, but come playoff time, if they make it that far, they'll be going up against some quality pitching. I know they hit the long ball against Skeens. They had one big inning in Pittsburgh on Thursday afternoon and were able to chase him out of the ball game. So I think the overall big picture is quite encouraging. But the one thing to keep in mind, too, just 5 singles yesterday against Peralta and a couple of Brewers relievers. I think it was even less than 5 singles or 5 hits that they had last Sunday at Wrigley against Nola. So they're going to be coming up against quality starters in crunch time and come October if they're to make it that far.
Another aspect of this Cubs team that is of concern, but they haven't been used as much over the last couple of weeks until yesterday, was the Cubs bullpen. I know Ryan Presley had his knee drained a couple of weeks ago. I know that Porter Hodge was used a couple of times to close games, but assuming when Ryan Presley gets back, do you think that closer job is his, or do you think it's still an open competition? Because you know as well as I do, Chris, that bullpen by committee, it may work in the short term, but if that's your plan for going on for a 6-month season, it's going to cost you in the long run.
Yeah, I think until further notice, because of his resume, until Ryan Presley completely drops the ball, he has seemed to be more consistent after a little bit of a shaky start to the season. And when he's been given opportunity, he's looked more like the Ryan Presley of old. So until he proves he cannot do it and blows a couple of saves, I think Hodge is a nice guy to have, as a backup plan if that happens. But I think until further notice, Craig Counsell likes to go with his veterans, likes to go with guys who have closed out World Series before, such as Presley had. So unless, he completely reverses from the trend he's been going on the last couple of weeks, he's still going to be the guy unless he proves otherwise.
Chatting with our buddy WGNTV's Chris Boden here on Second City Sports on Sports Chicago. LaKeena, McGee, Sidney Brown with you. Let's switch gears and talk some White Sox. The Sox actually won 2 out of 3 against Houston.
Yay!
I'm still celebrating that, as you can tell. But yeah, I mean, Luis Robert Jr. had a couple of big hits in that series. Edgar Carroll has been actually really solid for the White Sox so far. Being called up. They're actually at that point where they're kind of fun bad, as we say. So what do you think about the White Sox, and can they keep showing improvements?
Yeah, I don't see why not. It's going to be a big test coming up this week. They face a Kansas City team that, with the White Sox help, made it to the playoffs last season. Kansas City beat them 12 out of 13 meetings last year. So they're back on the road. The Sox have looked like a little bit more consistent team when they have been at home so far this season. So going up on the road against one of the division favorites will certainly be a test. But, I think you got to take your small victories here with the White Sox. You mentioned Edgar Carroll. The major league level does not seem too big for him from what we've seen over the first couple of weeks. And to put him in the cleanup spot this quickly and early in his career, and for him to produce, has been really impressive. So that's encouraging. I think what Chase Mydroth brings to the table, since he's been brought up to the big leagues, also the major league game doesn't seem too big for him. He's one of those scrappy middle infielder types who knows how to get on base, and he's proven that so far when he hasn't been on the injured list here with the White Sox. So that's encouraging as well when you start, pulling back and looking at the big picture of what the future might look like for the White Sox. And, a bigger part of the immediate future here is getting Luis Robert Jr. on track. He's finally shown signs of that over the past week after just a horrible month of April. So if they can get him on track and looking more like the form of his All-Star 2023 campaign, if they're so inclined to put him out on the market and see what they can get for him, his recent play of late has certainly provided encouragement if they wanted to go along those lines. And, a couple of these young pitchers have held their own while they've been in the rotation. Jonathan Cannon had a nice start. He's been a little bit up and down throughout both his rookie season last year and the early start this year. Sean Burke, after that impressive opening day start, fell off a little bit, but then kind of regathered himself on Thursday afternoon in that series finale against Milwaukee with the help of that Luis Robert Jr. catch. So again, little victories you have to take for the White Sox based on the nightmare that the team and their fans were through last year in setting a new major league record. And I also really like Will Venable. I think it was a smart hire for them to bring in someone like him, someone who has a recent major league playing history to him and has a good grasp of the game, and apparently is very strong in building relationships within that clubhouse, which quite frankly was something that was lacking over the last 3 years between Pedro Grifol and Tony La Russa. So that's a little victory as well. So as we, pull back at the big picture, there's certainly some encouraging signs here with the White Sox, and a couple of other players. Matt Thaiss has flashed and shown some good things as well. A couple of their veterans, Andrew Benintendi, even though he's the richest player in White Sox history and barely lived up to that the first season and a half, he's providing some steadiness when he's been in there too. So big picture, I know White Sox fans would like to, rush back into playoff contention. It just ain't going to happen. So I applaud their patience in doing so, because that's what they've been forced to do so, once again, with another rebuild. But there are a couple of encouraging signs as you take baby steps towards getting to where you eventually want to go here with this franchise.
Before I get to my next question, Chris, I just want to say I was out there this weekend, both Saturday and Sunday. Shout out to the White Sox organization for honoring Jeff Blum. They actually did that yesterday. But once the rain came down, yours truly ran underneath the concourse, and I'm glad that they finished the game in 7, so the White Sox will win. My next question is this: I know it may sound meatballish, but I think it's a good question amongst White Sox fans, and I'm one of many. Why isn't Tim Elko here right now? Why isn't Andrew Vaughn demoted?
Yeah. I wish I knew the answer to that question, and who knows? I think it's beyond time that he should be up here. With the way, I don't know if they're just trying to cling and push and hope and pray that Andrew Vaughn lives up to his, what was he, a number 3 overall pick back several years ago. Man, that guy is just in a rut that he can't seem to get out of, and I think they're afraid to send him back down to Arizona, from a pride standpoint, because he has been up here for a few years and has basically held his own from an offensive standpoint. Now, there's just no explanation to how bad he has been so far this season. And I'm not saying the roster move you have to make is to send Andrew Vaughn, back to Arizona or send him down to AAA Charlotte. You can still bring Tim Elko up and play him here and let Andrew Vaughn sit a little bit, or have one of them DH and the other play first base. I think there's a couple of options they could do if they wanted to go that route, but it's a mystery to me as well as why they haven't done that even sooner than now.
Let's switch gears and talk some Bears, Chris. Of course, with the draft that just finished. I heard you and Jared talk about this last week with some of the Bears picks. I see they're doing rookie OTAs right now as we speak. Colson Loveland, Ozzie Trapilo, Luther Burden the third, of course. Josh Fryman, shout out to him. He's a Mizzou guy too. But yeah, what grade would you give this draft? And do you think the Bears still need to address some needs that they need to get to?
Oh, yeah. I think, everyone's wish list was kind of pointing towards shoring up a couple of areas in particular. But as we got closer to the draft, we kept hearing more and more about that tight end position. And, if their, top pick to find a new left tackle was already gone, if they had eyes for Ashton Genty and he was already gone, then what routes do you go? And I think a lot of people were looking at the tight end position, especially with Ben Johnson being their new head coach and the way he utilized them in Detroit. So I wasn't necessarily surprised with the way the board fell the first 9 picks, that they ended up with either Warren or Loveland. But as we got closer, we heard more and more about Loveland being a better fit into the Ben Johnson offense. Now, as far as other things are concerned, you already had DJ Moore and you had Roma Dunze, who was the 9th overall pick last year, in your offensive stable. I think it was perhaps a little bit of a reach to go with another receiver that early when there were other issues to address. But then again, I think also the way the board fell late in the first round and early in the second, maybe that top tier of potential starting day one, opening day left tackles were gone. And I think Trapilo maybe, I'm not ruling him out in terms of him being a potential day one starter. As Ryan Pohl said, even though he played the last 2 years on the right side, they're going to start out with putting him on the left side to see if he can adapt quickly here as he turns professional. To me, the Boden the third pick was a bit of a reach, but again, I think that's also an indicator of your new head coach. One of the reasons you brought him in, and probably that head coach trying to convince Ryan Poles, okay, if there's a gray area here come draft day or when it comes time to select free agents, and I think I need more for my offense, we're going to lean towards the guy I have a preference for. And I think that's why he wound up with Luther Boden III. Now, big picture-wise, you should not have to worry about the wide receiver position over the next several years for the Bears. I think we're all kind of wondering who that third guy would be, along with DJ Moore and Rome Odunze. So that question has been answered. To me, there are still some questions, whether Shamar Turner is going to be that guy who's going to be able to, provide more of a solid member of a defensive line rotation, whether it's on the edge or inside. That's a question I think that still needs answering. I'm sure Montez Sweat would like a money in the bank guy on the opposite side to take some of the pressure off him in terms of generating pass rush. Who knows? Maybe Odengbo, the free agent that they signed from the Colts, is going to be one of those guys, or maybe this new coaching staff can bring a little bit more out of Austin Booker from what we saw a year ago. And the other position, of course, was that change of pace running back. Now, the seventh rounder that they brought in from Rutgers, is a guy that fits that description. But when he's the 22nd running back picked in the draft, whether he can be that guy you're going to plug in there every day to have a change of pace back for DeAndre Swift, that's a big question mark in my mind. But again, a couple of those other guys they probably had their eye on early in the second round were already gone by the time the Boden pick came around. So those positions, I still have a question. I don't know whether they necessarily address that. Obviously, when you come out of it, everyone always says, okay, you can't address everything with one particular offseason, one particular draft. Well, we're in year 3 of Ryan Poles right now. So that roster should pretty much be set. And I also have a little bit of concern about Jaquan Brisker. He's one hit away after 2 concussions in each of his first 2 years from probably having serious consideration as to whether he could continue playing. He sounded great a few weeks back when Caitlin got him on the phone for one of our feature segments on GN Sports. Sounded good, looked like he was pumped up and ready to go. But there's always that fear in the back of your mind, especially with guys who have concussions, whether that next one is going to come, plus the fact Kevin Byard only also has 1 year left on his contract. So safety position is one that should cause a little bit of concern in the back of Bears' minds, and if not their personnel department as well moving forward here.
Before we move on, Chris, one last question for you about the Bears. Of course, this NFL schedule will be released next week. Of course, there will be some leaks coming out in a couple of days leading up to it. But I told LaKeena this back in the offseason. I know Adam Schefter says that he could see the Bears open up against Philadelphia on that Thursday night, because the World Champions always usually open up the first Thursday night of the season. But like I said, all this will be official next week. But I said that the Bears would get up to 5 primetime games because, NBC and Sunday Night Football loves the Bears, especially when they play in Chicago. They're going to get a Thursday night game. I don't know if they're going to play on Thanksgiving this year. I don't know, because they did that last year. But yeah, I still say they're going to play on Christmas Day, because now with Netflix expanding their doubleheader on Christmas Day, and of course, Amazon is going to get a primetime Christmas night game. I still say that the Bears will play on Christmas night, but I wanted to ask you how many primetime games you think the Bears will get this year, given the fact that Ben Johnson's there and they expect big things from Caleb Williams in year number 2.
Yeah, I think you're pretty much on the target there. I would guess 4 or 5 with the buzz going on with Ben Johnson. And, I wouldn't even rule out, the possibility of the Bears, opening up, if not in Philadelphia on that Thursday night, maybe putting them in the Sunday night game against Detroit when Ben Johnson would be going up against his former team. So, I think those are the 2 big possibilities in terms of the Bears and Detroit, whether they open up in prime time that opening weekend or Thanksgiving. I think you can slot them into one of those in terms of Ben Johnson going back and facing the Lions. But I think you're spot on there. I think 4 or 5 is what we're looking at when it comes to the prime time this season.
Yeah, yeah, I know you. I know Sid said he's been saying that. So yeah, you guys might be on the money there. We'll find out
Yeah.
next week.
Won't have
Yeah.
to wait long.
No, we won't.
Yeah.
Let's talk. Yeah, let's talk some Blackhawks for a second, Chris, because I know that's you did Hawks pre and post on WGN Rio for a few years. What is Kyle Davidson doing? But anybody Bueller? Because they're looking for a new head coach. It's been kind of quiet on that front. Sid and I have been talking about it. I have my list. Unfortunately, those are veteran coaches that probably will not come here. But what do you think? What do you think, Sid? Who do you think is going to end up coaching this team?
Well, yeah, Kyle Davidson definitely has the patience pass in his back pocket because he laid everything out that he wanted to do with this team. It was going to be a deep rebuild. They have allowed him to do that. He's going to get, another draft. But I think, if they don't make a step up and get a couple of veteran guys in the off season to shore things up around Connor Bedard. I know he tried to do that last off season. It was kind of a hit and miss with the likes of Teravainen and Bertuzzi and a couple of these other guys that he brought in. But I think that's going to be awfully important for him to do again this offseason to try to bring the best out of Connor Bedard, who himself, in his exit interview says he's got some things he wants to work on to improve his game. But, if that kid has to go through a third straight season of the amount of losing that he's been the good soldier so far. And he said, when you're drafted number one, you understand it's not going to be, unless you fall into just a magical situation with some team. When you're drafted number one overall, he understood it was going to be a long haul. But I would imagine if this goes on for a third year, he's going to start to lose a little patience because he's certainly eligible to sign a contract extension this off season. I'm not sure if he's going to do that. Excuse me. In terms of the head coach, I think it was accurate that they definitely wanted to go after that University of Denver head coach, David Carl, who has had just incredible success with that program, a couple of national championships. He made it to the Frozen Four again this year. But yeah, I think they might be looking more at a couple of assistant coaches who have NHL head coaching experience. David Quinn, who used to coach the Rangers and was with the Penguins coaching staff. He could be a possibility. Jay Woodcroft, who was Edmonton's coach a year ago when they made it all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals in his first year behind the bench. They gave up on him after that horrible first month of the season this year. So he has been unemployed since. So if you're looking at guys who have some NHL experience, I think that's more the alley you're looking at than some of, the John Tortorellas or the Gerard Gallants. I'm not sure if those older guys would be ready to sign up for what would probably be a couple more years of, rough roads before the path to victory goes. And I'm not even quite sure that they would be a good fit for the way this roster is right now. So, I'm looking at a couple of guys. There's also an AHL coach. I believe his name is Todd Nelson, who is Hershey's head coach. He's had back-to-back AHL championships, has never been a head coach behind an NHL bench. So that's another thing to consider as the Blackhawks have gone the zero experience route over the course of their last four head coaches and putting them behind the bench. It's an interesting scenario that Kyle Davidson has to fight his way through. I even asked Eddie Olczyk the other day in kind of a half Blackhawks, half Kentucky Derby conversation that we had on GN Sports. He doesn't think they're going to go with an old grizzled NHL veteran guy who may be on his, third, fourth, fifth team here to come to the Blackhawks, questioning whether there would even be mutual interest in that. Those kind of guys would look for someone or a team that would have a quicker fix than the Blackhawks are right now. So if I had to make a guess right now, it might be one of those guys who's had a bite at the apple at the NHL level, has, learned the hard way. Sometimes you're hired to be fired, but now are looking for that next opportunity. So whether it's a Quinn or a Woodcroft or someone of that ilk, I kind of think that may be the direction that they're going in.
Chris Boden from WGN Sports here in Chicago is hanging out here with us right here on Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid LaKeena here with you on the Monday Extravaganza edition. Chris, last question for me. We saved them for last. We didn't want to give you too much of a headache. This is the Chicago Bulls because we're seeing what's going on in the NBA playoffs right now. I know that Josh Giddey's up for an extension, I believe, this summer. Some people said the AK Mark Eversley should trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo if Milwaukee is going to the rebuild. Well, thanks to Damian Lillard tearing his ACL in the playoffs this year. Some others say John Morant. Others say Zion Williamson. I say no to any those. Definitely those last two. I say no. What about you? What do you think the Bulls' offseason plans are going forward to prepare for next year?
Unfortunately, Sid McKee, I think it's going to be pretty boring. I mean, if they wanted to go for Giannis, what are the Bucks going to ask for? They're going to ask probably for Modest. They might even ask for Kobe White. I mean, it's going to take that kind of pack, and they don't have any attractive draft capital that they could use for that either. They don't have any high picks. So even if they wanted to make that play for Giannis, it would probably cost them Modest and Kobe if they're gung-ho on re-signing Josh Giddey. And I know there are a lot of differing opinions around the NBA in terms of just how good Josh Giddey is, and give him props. He was really good over the course of the last half of the season, is going to earn his payday whether you like it or not. So I think, unfortunately for the Bulls, and the way AK approaches things, which is maddening and infuriating, and even his approach approaching and after the trade deadline was maddening and infuriating too, rather than go on the full tank. Give Billy and the players credit for continuing to play hard and having that run where they won 15 of their last 20 regular season games. You can't blame them for that. But for not being able to dismantle this more and give yourself a better chance at a higher draft pick in what is a deep draft and what will be a deep draft next year, unfortunately, I'm just saying maybe he trades Vucevic this offseason, and maybe, you can sign, a decent free agent. But if they're sitting there at 10, 12 in the draft lottery, the blue chips are gone. Vuce is heading into his last season. He's 35. I'm not sure what the market is going to be for him. So I don't have a lot of optimism that things are going to change roster-wise for the Bulls. And, we'll be sitting here looking at a middling team once again when it comes to, when the ball tips off in October, November, and you're looking at another, 500 team or so. After AK's postseason press conference a couple of Thursdays ago, it hurt my head to hear the same thing over and over again with him throwing all his chips into the middle on this roster that he has assembled, and thinking what he has now, it has a higher ceiling than what a lot of us think that ceiling is with some of his players.
Oh boy, I was hoping not to let you off on a with your head trying to not to explode, Chris, but but we got to do just that. Chris, it's been so much fun. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks.
And where people can find you on social media and on TV.
Yeah, I have Boden tweets on X, and and Chris Boden on Facebook. I've been posting a lot on Facebook lately, but I hope you guys will watch us every night, 7 nights a week, 10:30, whether I'm there anchoring or not. Myself, Josh Fryman, JP, and Caitlin Sharkey. We like to serve the Chicago sports community, and hey, we're number 2 in the market at 10:30. It's only Kimmel's beating us out, so that's an indicator that a lot of people love what we're doing. That there's still a love for an exclusive nightly sports talk show over the air. And we appreciate everyone watching us. And I appreciate you guys having me on. I'm glad we could finally do this again.
Yeah, thank you, Chris, for joining us. Much continued success. You tell everybody at the sports department you said hello, especially our good friend Caitlin Sharkey. And we'd definitely like to have you back on again soon when your schedule permits.
Say the word. We'll try to make it happen.
All right. Well, thank you for making today. Thanks, Chris.
Have a good week, guys.
You too. That was not Jimmy Kimmel on the phone, by the way. It's like you guys stop that. So, of course, that was Chris Boden for WGNTV Chicago, and Sid, I gotta stretch. I gotta tell off. I love having him on. Like I said, we gotta get him on more often. On the flip side, we definitely gotta get into the rest of baseball. I got a couple of questions for you regarding the Cubs. We didn't get a chance to ask Chris because we were pressed for time. But I want to ask you a couple of questions about the Cubs. One issue about the Sox, and of course we'll get into the best and worst from the weekend in baseball to wrap up our number 1. You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid, LaKeena. Back with more baseball talk following this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too. These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov, a public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Welcome back to the Monday Extravaganza edition of Second City Sports, the first one for the month of May. You're locked and loaded, and we're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid, that's LaKeena. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80, that's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow McGee McGee on the Twitter, execute again, IG.
As we dive into the rest of baseball from this past weekend, both Cubs and Sox and the rest of Major League Baseball, if you want to discuss any of those baseball topics in this segment, you can do so by hitting us up on Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the up on the screen for you.
All right, look, and continue our baseball talk here. Of course, we'll start with the Cubs. We talked about it earlier, of course, with Chris just a few minutes ago. I kind of feel like I don't know. I mean, it's sort of an interesting, I don't want to say hazard, but unfortunately, this is sort of like the thing here. They're 21-14. They host the Giants starting tonight, and it's going to be sort of one of those things where you're just like, okay, this is going to be the big test for the Cubs, especially once we get the official word. I'm sure we won't get that till, I'm sure, Chris is on his way to Wrigley, and I'm sure I'm sure they'll talk about it later on GN Sports, but who's going to have to step up? I mean, Flex has been really solid, but again, I think, the fact that he's going to have to sort of step up a little bit and kind of, it'll be kind of like that ace, if you will, with, Steele's out for the rest of the year now. Schiller might be out for a start or two. It's just, I'm I'm not concerned yet because we got the offense, or the Cubs got the offense to kind of overcome that. But after what happened yesterday, when it's not clicking a lot, that could be that kind of raises a concern a little bit.
Yeah, one of those guys I'm looking forward to in the starting rotation to step up is Jameson Taillon. He did a nice job on Saturday getting that series win for the Cubs. He pitched a well of a game, and he was backed up by that offense. And you like to start to look at those guys. I know that Ben Brown was challenged by Craig Counsell late last week in terms of who needs to step up, and Ben Brown looks like he's going to turn that corner, so he needs to do that in his next start. So the Cubs starting pitching, we talked about over the last couple of years, LaKeena, that this has the starting pitching has been their Achilles heel in a good way, but with that offense, that starting pitching needs to be not excellent. It'll be great, but just be above average, because when that offense starts to go through a skid, that starting pitching needs to bail you out. But right now, they need to start stepping up. Like I said, Ben Brown and Jameson Taillon, who had a good start on Saturday. Those two that I'm looking at as far as starters in that rotation to step up big.
Going to be very interesting with this matchup. Matthew Boyd takes the bump tonight. Then you got Colin Rea, who actually had a really solid start. His last start, of course, you got Brent Brown as well. And of course, Rea has to face Verlander. So that should be an interesting matchup tomorrow. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of like I said, I mean, look, they got San Francisco. Then they go to New York. They got to play the NL East these next couple of series. After that, you got the Mets this weekend. That should be an interesting series. And they got the Marlins after that. So yeah, this is interesting. This is the kind for the Cubs to kind of pull a little bit of distance between them and the division. And that bullpen might get taxed a little bit. I don't know what Jed can do right now. As Chris said, I mean, unless you pick up somebody from that just lure you off the street. I mean, this is kind of like how it's going to be for a little bit.
Yeah, and so like I said, the Cubs had to trade water. As long as they play at 500 baseball, I think they'll be okay. But there's some things that had to go in their way in terms of direction going up. As we previewed the series, LaKeena, on our show last Friday about the Milwaukee Brewers, I heard Pat Murphy. He was on Hit and Run on 670 here in Chicago. He was talking about 4/5 of his starting rotation are on the IL right now, and they were a wounded dog. And for the Cubs, we said on last Friday on the show that this is the series, even though you got out of that gauntlet of a schedule to start the year in April, the rest of the schedule, even though it was coming in at a .462% with their opponents, you still had to battle the tough opponents in the NL Central. And the Milwaukee Brewers, even though they were down, it was nice that they took the series 2 games out of the 3 up there in Miller Park. Yeah, I'm still calling it Miller Park. But you took 2 out of 3 on the road there. That's Cubs North, as we all know. And now the San Francisco Giants, even though they come down to earth a little bit, they still want to surprise teams in baseball. You have to take care of business there. Too bad they won't be in full strength when they take on the Mets. The Mets have had their issues. We'll get to them in just a moment. So I think things are kind of even up for the Cubs. But as long as they play 500 ball, I think they'll be all right. Now, there's one question I want to ask you about P. Armstrong before we move on. I know in his last 18 games, I believe he has 9 home runs and over 20 RBI. Yep. I know that if he keeps playing like this, I think he's going to be an all-star. Is it too early? I had this crazy thought last night, but I don't. Some of you maybe think I'm crazy. Maybe some of you think I'm not. But do you put him as a top 5 candidate for National League MVP, even though we're over a month of the season? Do you put him as a? I think it's safe to say if he plays like this, he'll represent the Cubs at the All-Star game in Atlanta this coming July. But do you put him as a top 5 National League MVP candidate right now?
I wish you had asked Chris about that. I wish we had time to ask him about that.
I know. I'm
sure even he would have said, said put the brakes. I could picture him saying that because Pete Alonso's been playing very well. He might have something to say about that right now. His teammate Kyle Tucker. I mean, he's been lights out. He's been number one
for me. I'm talking about NL MVP candidate. It's him in my mind. It's him first, and then Pete Alonso from New York second.
Yeah, he's in the top 5 in the RBIs. I think he's in the top 10 of most of the batting categories, or like at least in the top 15. So yeah, it's going to be a very interesting. I would say let's wait a little bit to like after Memorial Day, then we can kind of see like, okay, some guys do fall back to, some guys go even further. So yeah, I'm a little hesitant to put PCA in that. I think he's definitely in the team picture for MVP. But yeah, of course, you got Alonso, you've got Kyle Tucker. So yeah, that's gonna be a little bit interesting. But yeah, I would say if he keeps it up, I think he'll definitely be up there. I feel like.
Okay. And one note quickly about the White Sox. Yes, they took 2 out of 3 from the Houston Astros over the weekend. As I said in the interview with Chris, shout out to the White Sox. They finally honored Jeff Blum yesterday during bottom of the 5th inning. He gave him
Do you see your jersey? Do you see your jersey?
I tweeted it out on Saturday because I wore my jersey Saturday, and I'm unfortunately I wasn't mentioned on their broadcast, but that's okay. But I did tag them in my tweet on Saturday. He said, "This is fantastic." I was surprised. The one thing that I was pissed about yesterday, LaKeena, excuse my French, but during the rain delay yesterday, I was down there in the right field bullpen sports bar, hanging out with the guys and gals from the section 108. But I didn't notice until I got home that I checked Jeff Blum's Instagram account. He was hanging out in the concourse behind home plate. I was like,
darn it.
Damn it, I could have ran up there and take a picture with him. Damn it.
Darn it. If you had stayed. See, if you had stayed, you would have got your picture probably with that. It was like your jersey of him. So
yeah.
Darn.
Yeah. But but it was a good weekend for the White Sox. They took the first game on Friday in those new City Connect jerseys, which I still say boo to that, but that's just my opinion. And then of course they won the rain delay shortened game yesterday. And I did get my Dick Allen bobblehead doll on Saturday. No, without the cigarette. If you know that famous 1972 Sports Illustrated cover, that's what the bobblehead is based off of. So I got that. But one particular player I wanted to get your thoughts on real quick as far as the White Sox is Shane Smith. Of course, he got his first win over a week and a half ago at Minnesota in that rain shortened delay game, which the Sox did win. But how impressed are you by Shane Smith? If he keeps this up, I think he'll probably be the lone representative for the White Sox at the All-Star game this year.
Yeah, he's been really solid and for the Sox, and I think that's going to be interesting to be kind of like see how he does long term. His first couple of starts have been really good. He got that win against Minnesota. So yeah, I think he would definitely if he can keep it up, I think he's young. He's kind of has that wicked slider that he's been fooling batters with that so far. So hopefully he can kind of keep it up. But yeah, I think I've been really impressed with from what I've seen of him so far.
All right. You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago City. LaKeena here with you on the first episode of the Monday Extravaganza for the month of May. Let's turn our attention over to the rest of baseball. The best and worst from over the weekend, LaKeena. The Baltimore Orioles losing their series to the Kansas City Royals. The Royals, I'm not still a believer in them, but I'm not saying I'm jumping on their bandwagon either, but give them my respect. The offense is starting to come back around. Bobby Witt Jr. had a big day yesterday. On the flip side for Baltimore, their starting pitching. If you didn't believe us last week, if you saw that series over the weekend, their starting pitching stinks. Even though Jackson Holliday is doing his thing, that starting pitching for Baltimore stinks. The New York Mets got swept in a doubleheader yesterday by the St. Louis Cardinals. I'm still not a believer in the Cardinals. I still believe that the Mets will be okay, but being swept in a doubleheader by a below-average team is unacceptable. As we called them on this show, the Oakland A's of Sacramento, they took the series from the Miami Marlins over the weekend, including winning the series finale yesterday. And, of course, the Texas Rangers, LaKeena, prevented your Seattle Mariners from sweeping them, beating the Mariners 8-1 in the series finale in Globe Life Park in Arlington yesterday.
Yeah, even though, that was a tough one to lose. But, they've won 8 of their last 10. Talking about Seattle. Cal Raleigh, who I think could be right there for AL MVP right now, your early favorite there. So I think he's been hitting the ball very well. He had it very well in that series. That was Jacob DeGrom, of course, he was pitching. That was the old Jacob DeGrom.
He earned that contract extension. Talking about Cal Raleigh.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. And so I know Kirby's on making his rehab start, so hopefully he can get back there because I think they're really going to need that beef up their starting pitching if they want to perhaps maybe hang on. That I still say it's going to be a very competitive AL West. Roddy Tellez, he smashed. In the first game of that series, broke a tie there, so they got the win there. But yeah, I think Seattle will definitely be up there in the AL West now. As far as going back to the NL East with the Phillies on the flip side, they got 2 out of 3 against the D-backs. Now they're only 2.5 back of the Mets, so they were able to kind of take advantage of the Mets struggles in their series against the Cardinals. Now, the Dodgers, well, I mean, look, you can't win them all, right? They did win 2 out of 3. They lost the Sunday Night Baseball one yesterday. That was a tough game for them to lose there. But you know what? They got 2 out of 3, and I think, look, I know the Padres, they've won 5 in a row. They're breathing down their necks, but it's going to be interesting that they're in West and such. But if they can, I know Ohtani had they Sasaki overpowered Roki Sasaki overpowered overcame those home runs that he gave up early against Freeman and Shohei. Shohei, by the way, he's a father now to a baby girl. But yeah, I think I think this is a good thing for the Dodgers. Now, like the last couple of years, they've ran away and hid in that NL West. Now they're actually getting a fight. So this might actually be a good thing. They're kind of in a dogfight in the NL West.
Well, for the Dodgers, you don't need to win 116 and 120 games. You need to get guys healthy to make hopefully a long run in October. And for the rest of the division, as you said, LaKeena, I'm not saying the San Francisco Giants are going to challenge the Dodgers like they did in 2021 when they really came out of nowhere. But you mentioned San Diego. I know Fernando Tatis got nicked up in that series over the weekend. Excuse me, against Pittsburgh. But he did play. He did end up playing yesterday. And so you mentioned Padres winning 5 in a row. The San Francisco Giants took care of the Rockies as they should win, I believe, 3 out of 4 there at home. And so the Dodgers, they're being put on their toes. I know many of their fans want them to, quote unquote, kind of cruise throughout this season. Maybe they'll end up being the case at the end. But right now, like you said, the competition is stiff, minus the Colorado Rockies.
Yeah, so like I said, it might be a good thing for them. So we'll see. Going into the AL Central, the Guardians took 2 out of 3 against the Blue Jays. They're starting to kind of get it going a little bit, but Detroit said no, not so fast. I know they won their series against the Angels, and Javi Baez playing a little outfield. That's a pretty that was a sight to see. Like we said, they won 3 out of 4 there. Carpenter and Sweeney, they each home and had 4 hits, so they've been kind of like stars on the rise there for that Detroit squad. I don't think they're going to run away in that, etc. I think the Cleveland will still be right there, but I think right now they're definitely living up to the hype.
Yeah, and let's not forget about that starting pitcher with Mize and Tariq Skubal, perhaps the best pitcher in the American League. So, and I told you last year, LaKeena, even though I did not pull the trigger for them to make the playoffs initially, I like their bullpen. So Detroit has it on all cylinders right now, and I told you they lack power in their lineup. You mentioned Kerry Carpenter with that 3-run home run yesterday. So hopefully Baez can turn it around with his bat. We know he's been doing it with the glove recently, but if he can turn it around with this bet, I think Detroit's offense could be that much more dangerous. We mentioned about Kansas City winning their series at Baltimore over the weekend. Cleveland still hanging in there. As I said, Minnesota, I know they stole a series, I believe, from the Boston Red Sox over the weekend. I know they won the series finale at Fenway Park yesterday, but Minnesota's going to share the cellar dweller with the White Sox this year in the AL Central. I still say that the Detroit will end up winning this division, but the way that Cleveland is playing right now, even though we're a month past the season now, they're not going to go away anytime soon.
No, they won't. And a shout out to Kyle Henderson for the Angels, got his first win of the season. The only win for it'll be the only win for the Angels in that series. Though they beat the Tigers on Friday. So shout out to get his first win as a member of the Angels. And the Yankees didn't really have a great weekend. I mean, probably one of the few times this season where the Yankees, they lost 2 out of 3 against the Rays, but even still, I mean, like Aaron Judge has still been hitting lights out. He has a 423 batting average, and he's been kind of on pace to kind of be like in that 400+ club. But I mean, look, the Yankees are still have a little bit of distance between themselves and the Red Sox in that division. So maybe not a bad thing for the Yankees, but they got a big series coming up starting tonight against the Padres. We'll get to that when we do the schedule in a couple of minutes here. But the Yankees, if you're a Yankees fan, you should be figuring out at this point. That's all I'm saying.
The only thing you should be freaking out if you're Yankees fans are injuries. Anthony Volpe, their second baseman, was hurt yesterday with that left shoulder. So we'll see if he misses any extended time. I know he continued on playing in the game yesterday. But as we talked about Tampa Bay, they're one of those teams that are pesky. They'll scrap fight and claw, which you give manager Kevin Cash credit for having that identity with those players that played the game right. On the flip side, for the rest of that division, I know Boston's still not good in that game yesterday against Minnesota, but I still believe they're going to be okay. Rafael Devers is selling into that role as a DH. He's actually been on fire over the last week or two. Baltimore, they've been a big disappointment starting pitching wise. Their bullpen is actually good, but if your starting pitcher cannot hold it, everything else is going to be affected. And of course, Toronto, like you said, they lost 2 out of 3 to Cleveland, but I still say they could be a sneaky good surprise if their starting pitcher continues to hold up. We know about Jose Barrios, but Kevin Gausman has to do the job, and Francis has really been a big major surprise in a good way for the Blue Jays starting rotation this year.
Yeah, he really has. So, well, and speaking of Gausman, of course, Cole Roggins, who had a nice showing yesterday, he only has allowed under 0.69 homers and struck out over 11 batters per 9 innings in his first 50 starts with the Royals. The only pitchers to do that since 1901. Gausman and also Nolan Ryan. So pretty impressive that he joins there. Now, I'm not saying that he's going to win the Cy Young for the AL, but he's been pretty good so far this year for the Royals, and he's one of the reasons why the Royals are still right there in the AL Central. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can keep it up.
Speaking of the Kansas City Royals, this is the first time during yesterday's game against Baltimore they hit 7 home runs total as a team. The last time they did that was back on July of 2020. So we talked about the Royals' offense being hit and miss at times. Well, they were hitting on all cylinders yesterday. As I mentioned, for the 5th final time, the Baltimore started pitching stinks. And so we putting up golfers at home play, you better take advantage of them. That's what the Royals did yesterday. They did it all weekend long down there on the Beltway City.
Yeah, so looking at the standings, I think we can do that. Like I said, Detroit's 1.5 back of Cleveland. Like I said, Seattle's, but you got the A's and the Astros are kind of like right there with them. In the East, you've got the Yankees, but the Red Sox and the Rays and the Blue Jays are all right there at 3 back. Even though the Blue Jays, like I said, didn't have a good weekend this weekend. The Mets are 2.5 up on the Phillies. The Cubs, they're 3 up on Cincy, even though they lost their series. Of course, Milwaukee's also right there as well. Like I said, the Dodgers, we talk about that, how competitive this division is in the NL West. The Padres only a half game back, 1.5 back are the Giants. So, like I said, we'll see how these series are going to be by next month, because I think we see some separation. We'll see some teams pass their teams. So that's when it really start to kind of get going here. So we'll see what happens. Should be very exciting.
Yeah, Memorial Day is the first barometer of where these teams are and where you think they should go. You're listening to Second City Sports on Chicago. LaKeena here with you. We'll go through the schedule for this week coming up in Major League Baseball. The series that will start today and tomorrow. The schedule looks like this for tonight. The Los Angeles Dodgers will travel to Miami to take on the Marlins. Cleveland will visit Washington, our nation's capital. San Diego will play the New York Yankees. The first game of the series can be seen on MLB Network tonight for most of the country. Others will get the Cincinnati Reds at the Atlanta Braves. That's also on MLB Network at 6:15. The rest of the schedule for tonight looks like this. The White Sox will start, I believe, a 4-game series at Kansas City. Shane Smith, as we talked about earlier, he'll face Carl Reagans. That's tonight at 6:40. On the antenna networks, we'll call CHSN. Let me move on. Houston will take on Milwaukee as they'll continue their road trip through the Midwest. San Francisco Giants, as we mentioned, they are here in Chicago right now. They'll get to take on the Cubs at the friendly confines starting tonight. It's a 3-game series. Today and tomorrow is both night games, and Wednesday is the afternoon game for those 2 teams in that series. Pittsburgh will travel to St. Louis. New York Mets will take on the Arizona Diamondbacks, and LaKeena Seattle Mariners will take on, as we call them on the show, the Oakland A's of Sacramento.
And that Smith-Riggins matchup, you guys, I talked about Riggins' stats, so that should be an interesting matchup with those 2 pitchers. So it should be a fun one there. Now going to the rest of the series, they'll be starting tomorrow. You got Texas and Boston, my bad accent there.
Fenway Park.
At Fenway Park. Philadelphia.
There we go.
I actually got it there. Yeah, I'm going to keep that going. See, I've been around a lot of Boston people, so I guess that might help. Philadelphia and Tampa Bay, that should be an interesting series there. Baltimore and Minnesota. Minnesota. That should be a fun series starting. There you got, let me see. I gotta make sure I don't repeat myself. Pittsburgh and St. Louis. You got Detroit and Colorado. Toronto and the Angels. The first game of that series will be on MLB Network. Also, the Mets and the Diamondbacks, MLB Network as well. So the regional coverage there as well. So check your listings there. The rest of the year, national TV lineup for this week on Wednesday. MLB Network games at 12:10. Houston and Milwaukee and Pittsburgh and St. Louis. That's also at 12:15. And the last of that Padres Yankees series will be on MLB Network and Prime Video. So if you have a Prime Video subscription, you'll be able to watch that as well. Also, Cincinnati and Atlanta will also be on MLB Network.
Yeah, that Prime Video coverage for that Wednesday Padres Yankees telecast will be a Yankees broadcast.
And that is your schedule for this week in MLB.
Hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2 straight ahead as you listen to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, the Monday Extravaganza. We had 4 Game 7s over the weekend, 2 in the NBA, 2 in the NHL, and we had 1 Game 1 action in the NBA that took place in Cleveland, Ohio. That's like your playoff recap is next. I'm Sid, that's LaKeena. You're listening to Sports Zone Chicago.
No, I don't know though. I'm scared. I mean,
Do you know that you're in my lane? No, not at all. Are you not paying attention? Are you texting? I was just checking in with my mom. I was telling her that I thought we'd be home by 6. It's okay. There's enough time. Just pay attention. I'm not even halfway through my text. There's no way. I'm not even going to look up. My babies are in the car. You have to pay attention. It's just supposed to be a quick text. I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Many will hear the calling. Few will earn the title. United States Marine. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Second City Sports, the Monday Extravaganza edition, the first one for the month of May. You're locked in on, and we're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss LaKeena McGee, which is she. I am Sidney Brown. You know that it's me. You can follow your Shirley on the Twitter, X, in the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You find my King McGee on the Twitter, X and Q screen, and the IG.
As we dive into some Stanley Cup playoffs, but first the NBA playoffs from over the weekend. If you want to discuss that in this segment, you can do so by hitting us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section, and we'll get the upper screen for you.
As Sid said, there were 4 Game 7s over the weekend. The first one from last night, the Warriors beat the Rockets 103-89. Buddy Hield had a playoff career high 33 points. He scored I think like 15 of those first 15 of those points in the first quarter. Steph kicked in with 22. Jimmy Butler playoff. Jimmy had 20. On the flip side, though, for the Rockets, 24 points from Amin Thompson. Alperen Sengun had 21. And Fred VanVleet had 17, but that was about it for the Rockets for double figures. This is actually the 5th time. Let me say it again. The 5th time that Steph has eliminated the Rockets in the playoffs, including this is the second Game 7. So we had to wait a little bit, in the fourth quarter, but we did get the Steph night to the Rockets. So, I'm sure Houston's already is having nightmares right now.
Yeah, I still remember that one back in 2018. Mike D'Antoni, he deserved to get fired after that. 27 missed shots, including 27 missed 3-pointers. They had to go to stay on the roast, but that's revisionist history. Let's focus on what happened yesterday. The Rockets started off slow in that game. The Warriors, you had that feeling, maybe it was just me, but you had that feeling that they were in control, but not really. They were in control, but they were missing shots. You really did get nothing. I'm talking about the Warriors. You really did get nothing from your bench. You only had 3 points from your bench, and that was courtesy of Kevon Looney. Jonathan Kuminga, as we said, he needed to step up in this series. I know the Warriors blew a golden opportunity at home last Friday, but you didn't get nothing from him last night. It was really up to their starters, and he got contributions from Draymond Green. I know he picked up a stupid technical foul, but he stayed in the game, was effective on the defensive end. He had 16 points, but he was really effective on the defensive end. You mentioned Steph Curry woke up in the fourth quarter. Jimmy Butler contributed 20. So it was kind of a team effort at the end. LaKeena, you knew that Houston did not have enough firepower at the end there. Jalen Green, I believe this was the second time in this series that he scored under 10 points. He's still going to be a good talent, but he needs to come up at big moments. He just didn't do that last night. You mentioned Fred VanVleet. He did what he could, but it wasn't enough. And of course, Alperen Sengun, he had 21 points, but he struggled shooting 9 for 23 from the field, so that's not going to get it done either. And I hope that people, to an extent, I agree with Brian Windhorst at ESPN when he said right before the playoffs, America and the basketball world is going to find out who Amin Thompson really is during these 2 weeks in this series. I hope casual basketball fans who didn't get a chance to watch the Rockets against their favorite team this year, I really hope that you watch closely to find out how important he is to Houston Rockets.
Yeah, I know the Bulls learned about that in the last couple years. So, I think he's definitely right there as well. What's interesting here is that the whole thing, like I said, we got a new meme from Draymond, so if you guys saw, his face, with his showing a little bit of a gray beard though. So yeah, you're getting a little bit older there, Draymond. But yeah, so they'll face Minnesota, and I'm talking about the Warriors. It'll be a quick turnaround too, because the series starts tomorrow. So it'll be interesting to see, like I said, we'll get deeper into it in a little bit here. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting in that series. Will it be experienced? Because remember, Minnesota got all the way to the Western Conference Finals last year. So just saying that for people who are saying that, I was talking to a friend on Twitter or X last night. He's like, no, I think the experience was a factor, but they're getting older too. Steph, Draymond, those guys are getting younger. So that could play a little bit of a factor there too, especially since they had to play 7 games. But we'll see.
Yeah, and plus, as I mentioned, you only got 3 points for Kevon Looney off your bench last night for Golden State. Facing a team like Minnesota, like I said, we'll get into this more coming up as we preview the matchup. But the Warriors going to need contributions from the young guys with Kuminga. Buddy Hield, who I thought needed to have a big game last night. He did, as you mentioned, with 36 points. So, and also Brandon Podziemski, who did a nice job last night. I need to see him step up more too, like you said, because Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and yes, Jimmy Butler to a lesser extent, they're not getting any younger. So the young guys for the Warriors need to step up their play. They're going to be the very versatile and talented Timberwolves team.
Speaking of young players stepping up, last night, preceding that game in the East, in the game one Eastern Conference semifinals, the Pacers upset the Cavs on the road. Andrew Newbart had 23 points, was a career high in the playoffs. Tyrese Halliburton kicked in with 22. All 5 stars were in double figures for the Pacers as they beat the Cavs 121-112. I don't think anybody saw this coming, Sid. Spider, Donovan Mitchell had 33, only 12 points from Jared Allen. That's not going to do it for you. You're trying to win. Evan Mobley had 20 and 21 points, not the best for Ty Jerome, which is a career high for him in the playoffs. But the Cavs, I think they didn't. I don't think they were playing down to their competition, but I think no one really thought that maybe the Pacers, they got a little bit of playoff experience too.
And also, too, let's not forget not to shade the Indiana Pacers' victory from last night because it was hard earned and deserved. But Darius Garland, who was injured last year, but he's been healthy for most part this year for Cleveland. He was missing in action last night. And I thought that was a very telling sign for the Cleveland Cavaliers. We talked about Kenny Atkinson perhaps being the head coach of the year in the NBA. He had most of his stars healthy for the most part this year. Donovan Mitchell playing off the ball. Of course, Donovan Mitchell had the ball in his hands last night trying to play hero ball. He got the stats, but he did not get the win. So the Cleveland missing Darius Garland was huge. It affected some of the other guys. When Indiana was struggling a little bit there at the end of that third quarter, I know Cleveland made their run, but the way that Indiana was making their shots, especially from the outside, 19 and 36 from three-point range for a 52.5% clip. Once Indiana got it going at the three-point line, you got that feeling that Cleveland didn't have a chance. With them not rebounding the ball in time of Cleveland, missing Darius Garland, playing team ball instead of playing hero ball instead of playing team ball, Indiana was making their shots last night. Once you saw those elements coming to play, the Pacers put in the kill, and they did just that.
Yeah, they really did. So we'll see what happens in game 2. And Garland, hopefully he'll be back because you saw
they need
how much
him.
They really missed him last night. So that could be a factor if he's not going to be 100%. So we'll see what happens there. Now,
real quickly, Keena, I know game 1 took place last night, and we didn't know about the matchup on our last show on Friday. Who do you have in this series and how many games? I still have Cleveland in 6.
As do I, but I'm a little worried though, especially if Garland isn't going to be 100%. So
it's going to be a long series.
Yeah. Now here's the second game 7, the second from the NBA, as Denver beat the Clippers. I turned this game off about halfway through the third quarter because they were the Clippers. We'll start. Okay, Aaron Gordon did step up. He had 20 points for the Nuggets, and of course we saw but it's just like the Clippers. Well, never mind. But 22 points from Aaron Gordon Jr. Michael Porter Jr. had 15 points.
Finally for him.
Yeah, Jamal Murray had 16. Christian Braun had 21. Jokic didn't have his best game. He had 16, but he really didn't need him as the other guys stepped up. Now on the flip side, though, for the Clippers. They had 12 points on the bench for Bogdanovich, 13 points on the bench for Kobe Brown, but 22 from Kawhi, but only 7 points for James Harden. Really? Also, Norman Powell only had 9 points. So unfortunately, they picked the worst time to have their worst game this season. Talking about James Harden and Powell too.
What did we say on the show last week, LaKeena? I think it was the last Monday show. After that debacle in Game 4, if the Clippers lose this series, you had to look back at Games 1 and 4. Game 1 a couple Saturdays ago, they should have won that one, lost it in overtime. Game 4 last Saturday afternoon, late afternoon, block out Aaron Gordon.
Yeah, that's basically it. So and unfortunately, this is Game 7. Unfortunately, this is a James Harden's kryptonite. But you could have prevented that though. You could have won it in 5 or 6. But hey, revisionist history, I guess. So now the Nuggets move on. They'll face OKC that they've been chilling for the last week and a half. It seems. But so let's talk about these matchups. We'll start. Okay, Game 1 is tonight. You got the Knicks and Boston, and Boston has had the Knicks number in recent seasons. They did win all 8 of their matchups in the regular season. I have the Celtics in 5, but again, I just don't trust the Knicks. I mean, I don't know how healthy Brunson is. Cat, is in and out. So yeah, I just, and plus you got Taylor. Taylor looks like he's feeling a lot better. Then of course, Derek Wright's a big factor too. Jaylen Brown as well. Kristaps Porzingis. We'll see how he does against Cat. So yeah, I think Celtics has too much firepower. Firepower, I feel like is for me to say.
Yeah, if that's the case, of which it is, on the flip side for the New York Knicks, who's going to be that third scorer? Karl-Anthony Towns came alive the last couple of games of that series against Detroit. You know what you're going to give a Jalen Brunson, even though he's hobbled again. We all know that Josh Hart does not have a jump shot. He's a great offensive rebounder, but he doesn't have a jump shot. OG Anunoby, he's been very good for the Knicks, but if you'd have to depend on him and everybody else is struggling, that's going to be a problem. No shade to OG, but it is what it is. Tom Thibodeau doesn't like to play his bench a lot, except for McBride and Mitchell Robinson. Outside of those two, he doesn't like to play his bench. So the question is, who's going to be that third scorer for the New York Knicks? And number 2, what type of defense you're going to play against Jason Tatum? Obviously, if you double him, it opens things up with Drew Holiday, Jaylen Brown, and don't forget about Peyton Pritchard. Well, I believe he's the 6th man of the year winner in the NBA this year. His production offensively really went up compared to last year. So you mentioned Boston has too much firepower, which they do. For the Knicks, how are you going to defend Jason Tatum? In number 2, who's going to be that third scorer behind Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns? And how will Karl-Anthony Towns play in this series? Let's not forget about the Ages one, Al Horford.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He's going to be matched up with Karl-Anthony Towns. What will Karl-Anthony Towns do against him?
Yeah, and he still plays very well too. Talk about Horford, so even though he's 34 now, so yeah, he still plays at a pretty high level. So yeah, it should be an interesting series. But yeah, if I would be surprised if it goes 6, but I do have the Celtics winning in 5. But again, we'll see what happens.
I'll be that bonehead. I said Boston in 6.
What's
his face? Speaking of boneheads, but a respectable manner. But all these, the former NBA player, he was on Sports Radio over the weekend. I don't know if you heard this, but he actually picked the Knicks to upset the Celtics in this series. I'm just saying.
Well, okay. And we'll see.
I guess Patrick Ewing's coming back for them. I don't know.
I guess. So yeah, I must have, and John Starks too. I must have missed that. Charles Oakley. I mean, I guess they're all coming back. I guess so. We'll see. Now going to the Western Conference, this series also starts tomorrow. Denver and OKC. Now OKC, like I said, they've been chilling for the last week and a half. I'm hoping that Coach D kind of give them a little bit of scrimmages and stuff, because you don't want to get a little bit too tight. But they're young, so it shouldn't be a problem. Yeah, Denver and their experience. I will say OKC in 6 because SGA. You gotta they gotta be consistent, but all the other guys gotta step up as well. Holmgren, and all those guys. I mean, it's going to be kind of see how OKC does. Like I said, Aaron Gordon is a good thing he stepped up, but yeah, can he do it consistently? That's been a problem. So that, yeah. So yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, well, if you're OKC, will you take a page out of Minnesota Timberwolves playbook from last year? Let Jokic do his thing and shut all the other guys down. You mentioned Michael Porter Jr. I said finally a few moments ago, he came up big with those 15 points in Game 7. He was a hit and miss in the last series against the Clippers. I'm looking for Michael Porter Jr. to step up. Jamal Murray, the same thing, even though he was a little bit more consistent in this go-around so far in this year in the playoffs against the Clippers. I want to see what he could do. Aaron Gordon, as you mentioned, he's going to be the wild card, in my opinion, in this series because of his versatility, playing a small forward spot and the 2-guard spot as well. We all know that Oklahoma City loves to get up and down the floor. I think it's going to be a high-scoring series, but who can control the tempo? I think that Denver can play more of a half-court game with the Jokic than OKC can play a half-court game. We all know that OKC loves to running up and down the floor. And I think it's going to come down to the style of game, which adjustments is going to be made first. And for Oklahoma City, I'll start back with them. SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, for those of you scoring at home. He must control the tempo and limit the turnovers, because if you don't, you give a veteran team like Denver opportunities, they'll take advantage of them. And my wild card player for OKC to watch in this series is Isaiah Hartenstein, the free agent pickup for the New York Knicks over the summer. He is going to be huge, especially when it comes to rebounding. You saw what Ivan Zubac did against Jokic with the Clippers in that series. last week. We talked about it with our guy Scott Lewis from the Barber Share Network on last Friday on the show. Zubac was a problem for Jokic in that series. Let's see if I don't expect Isaiah Hartenstein to be an offensive threat in this series, but I expect them to set the tone with the defense and especially with the interior in this series. And we'll see how well the Thunder can rebound. If they can rebound well against this Nuggets team, I think they'll have a shot in this series. I'm going with OKC in 7. I think Denver can still one of these first 2 games here at home, even though they are fatigued. And Oklahoma City hasn't played in over a week. But I think Denver will get 1, perhaps 2 games at OKC. But the question is, even though OKC has the home court advantage, can they get 1 in Denver? Because if they can get 1 in Denver, I think they will win this series, whether it's in 6 or 7. Obviously, if they'll get no wins in Denver, I'm talking about OKC. If they get no wins on the road, and Denver always has stolen home court, this series is going to be over before you know it.
I wonder if David Allen is going to call his dad, Rick, and kind of like, Dad, well, because remember, he led the Portland Trailblazers to the NBA Finals twice back in the day in the early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see what happens in that series. Now, the last Western Conference series that starts tomorrow. Quick turnaround for Steph, Draymond, and the rest of the Warriors. They got to go to the Target Center and face Minnesota. Now, we talked about it, I was telling a friend of mine on X last night, and that Draymond and stuff, and we talked about it just a few minutes ago. Yeah, they're getting older, so you got to think, how much will fatigue be a factor here? And I'm hoping that they just went from Houston right to Minnesota, because to Minneapolis.
I think they did.
Yeah, I would hope they packed enough so that because they're not it would be kind of silly. But look, I think people forget that Minnesota made it all the way to the Western Conference Finals last year, like you said. Maybe let Steph do his thing and try to slow down everybody else, and I think that they might do that. I can see Chris Finch doing that for the T-Wolves. Make sure Ant gets his shots, Randall gets his shots. Naz Reid's needs to be a big factor too. He was a big factor in that series against the Lakers. He kept LeBron at bay for the most part. Rudy Gobert, can we see that consistently? That we saw Jay McDaniels too. So yeah, I think if you could utilize those guys and perhaps let Steph be Steph and have everyone else kind of like just play catch up, that might actually help them.
You mentioned about those guys for Minnesota. I'll start off with Julius Randle first. We talked about him and Anthony Edwards being a fit. They struggled to start the year due to adjustments and whatnot. And of course, Julius Randle got injured around the All-Star break. Ever since he's been back, him and Anthony Edwards have been perhaps the best duo in the NBA. And you saw that in that series against the Lakers. Julius Randle in particular, the last two games in that series, he was starting to find his shot. He was aggressive, taking the ball to the basket. And let's not kid ourselves. He has a personal vendetta against the Lakers as well, yes. the team that drafted him over a decade ago. So he wanted to show them what they missed. Mm-hmm. Also, too, Naz Reid. I know a couple of those games in that series against the Lakers, he was in foul trouble early, but he's very versatile. And he's going to be a problem defensively for the Golden State Warriors. So watch out for him in this series. Let's not forget about Rudy Gobert. Him and Draymond Green go back a decade. So they don't like each other. So
no, they don't.
Unless something real stupid happens, expect some minor fisticuffs via verbal and maybe a couple of elbow shots here and there in this series. Hopefully, not too much gets out of hand between those two players. But you mentioned about the versatility of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Let's not forget about Dante DiVincenzo. I know he didn't do anything the last couple of games of that Lakers series, but he's a guy that can come off the bench and provide you with some buckets. And he has a very good sneaky defensively as well. We saw that last year when he was playing with the New York Knicks. So. And also to Mike Conley Jr. Coming off the bench playing point guard, another ageless veteran. So Minnesota is very versatile, more than people give them credit for. And let's not forget, outside of, I believe, Game 3's 43-point outburst, Anthony Edwards has not gone off yet.
No, he hasn't. The fact that they still won that series just shows you how good class he has behind them. So we'll definitely see there in that history. Yeah, that's gonna be funny as hell. Hopefully, like I said, it won't be. I'm sure they won't. They'll just jaw at each other and stuff. So yeah, that just see what happens. I've got Minnesota in 6.
I'll say Minnesota in 7. Because I think it's going to be a sneaky good series. Oh, yeah. I know everybody looking at Minnesota. Oh, why? Some of y'all, they won't say it out loud, LaKeena, but I'll say it here. Some of those pundits are mad because they beat the Lakers, so they're going to take Golden State in 6 or 5. Yeah. But let me tell you, folks, Minnesota is very versatile. They are very good. They're starting to figure things out, and don't be surprised if they win the series. Like I said, I picked Minnesota in 7. On the flip side for the Warriors, we're going to get from Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Jimmy Butler. Brandon Podziemski, Buddy Hield, and Jonathan Kuminga. I'm focusing on those 3 guys. If those 3 guys decide to show up consistently, I think the Warriors can steal this series. But if one of those guys don't play consistently, Minnesota's going to win that series in 5 games. But I got Minnesota in 7. This is going to be a sneaky good long series.
And speaking of series, starting tonight, you got the Knicks and the Celtics. Both these games are going to be on TNT and True TV, streaming on Max, by the way. And then you've got Denver and OKC at 8:30. The doubleheader there, the game 1 of that series.
Yeah, Tuesday, tomorrow, game 2, Pacers, Cavaliers. They'll be seen on TNT, True TV, and Max. That's at 6:30 Chicago time, 6 p.m. Chicago time, I should say. Followed by game 1 of the Warriors Timberwolves series, which we just previewed. That's tomorrow night at 8:30 p.m. Chicago time. That also could be seen on Max, TV, and TNT rather in True TV.
Keeping up with the TNT, True TV, and Max theme. Of course, these 2 games will also be on there. The doubleheader in the East, you got game 2 of Boston as they host the Knicks, and Denver and OKC at 8:30 on Wednesday.
And 1 game on Thursday, and that's going to be on TNT, True TV, and Max at 7:30 Chicago time, is game 2 of the Golden State Warriors Minnesota Timberwolves series. And that's your schedule for the NBA playoffs for this week.
You listen to Second City Sports on Chicago. LaKeena, McGee, Sidney Brown with you. Switching gears here, let's talk a little Stanley Cup playoffs, I should say. And we'll start. We'll do this one. If we don't we'll preview the matches during the break, but after the break, I should say. But shout out to the Winnipeg Jets. They come back from 3-0 down to come back and not only tie but beat the Blues 4-3 in double overtime. And this was, and shout out to Kenny Albert, just a great call. I don't know if he and Eddie Olczyk were in Winnipeg. I doubt. I think they were in a studio, but I shouldn't have said that. But
I think they're going to stop that for the next round, from what I read and heard. But
yeah, I hope so. Yes, I hope so. They better be going to Canada. But yeah, Adam Lowry scored on a tip shot in overtime with less than 16-10 in, and they rallied to beat them. And just the atmosphere in Winnipeg was just so electric. And this would have been a bad loss had they had lost this series.
Yeah, as what did we say on the show on last Friday? If Winnipeg didn't take care of business in Game 6, Game 7 was going to be a problem, and they played like it early. But wherever they found that energy, they fought their way back, and of course, overtime in hockey, there's nothing like it in Stanley Cup playoffs. In overtime, you got to play perfect. You can play perfect, quote unquote perfect, and still lose the game. So, but the Winnipeg Jets found that extra energy and they got it done. St. Louis, I know it's a tough loss for you guys. Yes, we're Blackhawks fans, but the Blues gave the Winnipeg Jets all they could handle. Now, will it serve Winnipeg in the next round? We'll see coming up. But this was more about Winnipeg's shortcomings than anything else. Like you said, they barely reached the summit and escaped, in my opinion, with this win last night. Congrats to them on getting it done in overtime. But I think it was more about the Blues not giving in to the hype. Well, it's just the Winnipeg Jets. We're an average team, so we're just going to back down. As we said before, you don't know what's going to happen in the Stanley Cup playoffs. An injury, a bad game, just players not finding that. Players not finding that issue in terms of tallying up goals and points. So there's a lot of factors there, and one factor can go against you and turn a whole series around. One bad game can turn a whole series around.
I was hoping to pray that this wouldn't go 5 overtimes, because we remember that marathon on ice. Game.
You're talking about Pittsburgh and Philly from 2000?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, didn't until about 1-something in the morning in our time. Yep. So I was a senior in high school, but don't tell my mom, but I actually stayed up for that game. But we didn't have to go to school. I was
in college, so like I said, I didn't watch that whole game either. But I had to wake up early for class the next day. I watched the early replay of Sports Center. I was like, they ended that game at 2:00 in the morning our time. Ooh.
Yep, pretty much.
That game started at 6 our time, so I was like,
yep.
Damn.
Yeah, that was it.
Pete Jones scored that one. I believe he. He scored that one.
Yep. Boucher. Yeah, Brian Boucher was on. It was on net. Yeah. So
yep.
we gotta do that game for Old School TV Monday at some point. But
yes, we will. Yeah, I think I gotta look at. I think the anniversary of that game is this year.
Yeah, it is. So
Yeah, we definitely got to look that up. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, we gotta look that up over the break. But yeah, so a nice win for Winnipeg. Now I know we're up against it. Okay, well, we'll preview the semifinal games after the break. But real
Yeah,
quick,
Colorado, Dallas too.
yeah. So Mikko Ratsson had scored 2 goals, including the go-ahead goal against his former team for Dallas, and well, if you saw his comments afterwards, yeah, he was trying not to be petty, but he was a little bit petty. So, but yeah, of course, I mean, look, Dallas. Look, I mean, look, Dallas. They lost one of their top defensemen and one of their top forwards, and they ended up winning that game. So you got to give them credit for that.
Yeah, revenge is best served up cold.
Yeah, Colorado, their fans are not very happy at the moment. So, so we'll talk more about that game, and of course, we'll preview the semifinals game. A couple of good ones here after this break, and of course, we'll do our sports potpourri. Of course, a thoroughly finished the Kentucky Derby. Scottie Scheffler goes back into the winner's circle. Old School TV Monday, and so much more. LaKeena, McGee, Sidney Brown, Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago. Our sports potpourri segment coming up right after this. We gotta get a graphic.
No, I don't know though. I'm scared.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I needed for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things, none of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Welcome back to Second City Sports, the Monday edition, the Monday extravaganza edition, the first one for the month of May. You're locked and loaded in real live and in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. LaKeena McGee is she. Sidney Brown here is me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at CK80. Once again, it's CK80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, again, IG.
If you have any questions or comments for us during our sports potpourri segment, our last segment of the show for today, you have any questions or comments for us of any of the topics that we discussed on today's show, you can hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the up on the screen for you.
Continuing our doing let's do that hockey talk. If you heard Nathan McKinnon's comments after the game, of course, after Mikko Rantanen, his former teammate, scored 2 goals, including the go-ahead goal that sealed it for Dallas. He was very happy afterwards, so I would implore folks to look up his comments. Like I said, Dallas lost their top forward and their top defenseman, and they were able to come back and still won. End up winning that series. Just a testament how deep that Dallas squad is. So they have the young guys step up. Well, yeah, we'll see what happens in the next round because they've got a tough one against Winnipeg. So let's preview that right now.
Yeah, give Peter DeBoer credit. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Oh yeah. Oh, you know what? Isn't he like 9-0 now in Game 7?
Something like crazy stat like that. Yeah.
Like 8 or like I thought about Dave Kerner.
All right, let's go to the.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought I saw something where it was like that. Yeah, he's like 8 or 9. He's like 8 or 9 or something like that in Game 7. That's insane.
Yeah. Let's start the series. They'll kick off tonight on ESPN at 7:00 Eastern Time. Game 1 of the Eastern Conference semifinal series is between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Florida Panthers. Of course, the Florida Panthers eliminated the Tampa Bay Lightning. While the Maple Leafs, it was a little bit tougher than expected, but they eliminated those Ottawa Senators in the first round. Who has the edge in this series and why in your mind?
Oh boy, I kind of feel like this is gonna be the goalie show. I feel like I think this is gonna be one of those things where it could come down to the goaltending because I think both these teams are pretty even. Sam Reinhart, of course, like one of the top forwards in the league. Of course, Mitch Martin on the other side. He's been doing this for a bit now. William Nylander, of course, if you guys remember that name, that he's been doing it for a minute as well. So yeah, so I think it's really gonna come down to the goaltending. I think because I think both of these teams could definitely. I think both these teams are evenly matched. So I think this could be one of those matchups where it could come down to the defense and the goaltending. I think.
I think depth is going to come a factor too with both of these teams as well. Who's going to have that secondary scoring, especially in the case of Florida? We don't know that the Panthers are deep, but how deep is Toronto, and who's going to help out Austin Matthews just in case he doesn't get it going in this series for Toronto? So I think it's going to be a sneaky long series. I have Toronto in 6.
If Borowski, can't stand on his head, I think I got Toronto in 7. I think this is going to go 7.
Okay. And Richard had Toronto 7, but I said it'll go 6. But I wouldn't be surprised if it went the full 7. Now, tomorrow's matchups looks like this. Both games can be seen on ESPN. Excuse me, tomorrow, Tuesday. At 6:00 on Tuesday tomorrow, LaKeena's Carolina Hurricanes against Alexander Ovechkin in the Washington Capitals. That's the other game 1 of the Eastern Conference second round series. On paper, this looks like a mismatch, but we all know that Carolina is tough, especially defensively. I know they have that youth and their skill on their side, but Washington has the veteran presence on their side, and they have more depth than what people give it credit for. It's not just Alexander Ovechkin and everybody else like it was early in his career. Also, too, the Capitals has some strong goaltending as well. So can Carolina perhaps still one of these 2 games in our nation's capital and make it a series?
Yeah, but Logan Thompson has been I think he's like a finalist for top goaltending. So yeah, I have the Capitals in 6. I like the Carolina squad a lot. Like I said, Robert Moore was one of my favorite players growing up. So Seth Jarvis, Sebastian Aho, but again, of course, you've got not just Ovi, but you've got Dylan Strome on the other side. He's been around a long time. So I'll say the Capitals in 6.
I'm with you. I was going to say in 5, but I think Carolina's too good just to go out like that in the gym list 3. So I'm looking at the Capitals in 6 as well. And we'll get to the Dallas Winnipeg matchup in just a moment, but the other half of that Western Conference bracket, their second round matchup, will have the Edmonton Oilers, who beat the Kings in 6 last week. They'll take on the Golden Knights, who in some people's minds upset the Minnesota Wild in 6 last week. So it's the Edmonton Oilers in the Vegas Golden Knights. That's tomorrow night at 8:30. Game 1 of their series from the Western Conference first round. That can be seen on ESPN. Let me tell you something right now, LaKeena. I like this Vegas Golden Knights team. I know they're underestimated all year long, but it is shocking that they beat the Minnesota Wild. And I think it's going to be a long series. We know what kind of firepower that the Edmonton Oilers have, but I think it's going to come down to the goaltending, and I think the Vegas Golden Knights are a well-balanced team. I'm pressing my luck one more time. I got the Golden Knights in 7.
Yeah, people forget that the Golden Knights just won the Stanley Cup a couple of years ago, so it's not like this team has literally came out of nowhere. I know they've struggled in the last few years, but like come on, they just won the cup a couple of years ago, folks. Like, really? Everybody's really, Jack Eichel's been around a long time. Pavel Tveriev, he's been around a long time too. So yeah, those are some of the holdovers from that cup. So yeah, I think I find it kind of weird that people are just casting aside Vegas, but whatever. But yeah, look, if Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, those are going to be your top guys. If they're not who they are, then you might as well just forget it. So I think goaltending is going to be a factor as well for Edmonton. But yeah, I got this going to 7, but I'm picking Edmonton. I just think Edmonton. I think they're finally going to get over that hump and get back to the Stanley Cup final.
Okay.
Oh, I should have said that yet. Oh, my bad. Sorry, didn't mean to say that yet.
This series could go either way, so this should be fun. Of course, the Wednesday schedule looks like this on ESPN, a doubleheader again. 6 o'clock on Wednesday, Game 2 of the Panthers Maple Leafs series in the fall is followed by Game 1 of the Dallas Stars and the Winnipeg Jets. That's Game 1 of the first half of the Western Conference bracket. That's at 8:30 on Wednesday on ESPN. LaKeena, both these teams are fatigued more so than people will know. Of course, as we mentioned last night, Winnipeg came back to beat St. Louis in Game 7, so they're going to get an extra day. There's probably no skate today. They'll probably go do a light workout tomorrow. The Stars, of course, eliminated Colorado at home last Saturday night, so they get an extra days as West, but not too much. So, in your mind, who has the edge? Will Winnipeg roll all over Dallas, or are we in for another long series?
It's going to be interesting to see how these teams respond. They get a couple extra days off, so I think they play very physical Game 7. So I'm thinking that maybe I think don't be surprised if it's like end up like 1-0 or something like that. So
I was going to say because I think Game 1 on Wednesday, even though each team had an extra day off, I think pay attention to the first 10 minutes of the game. If it's a slow-paced, tight, very close, tight niche contest in terms of the styles. That's a tall tell sign of both these teams are still recovering from their unexpected long series. In particular, Winnipeg, because no one saw their series going 7 with the Blues. But with the Dallas, they blew an opportunity in Game 6. Of course, they get the job done in Game 7. So I think fatigue is going to be a factor, at least for this first game of the series. As we say all the time, especially basketball, it's all about playoffs, about matchups and adjustments. And so I think it's going to be a low-scoring Game 1 that could set the tone for the rest of the series. But I wouldn't be surprised if Dallas shot Winnipeg and winning Game 1.
Which could happen, like I said. I mean, it could be a scoreless going into overtime. So, look, that might happen. So, I got Winnipeg. I got this going 6. Winnipeg, because I think they know that they should have swept, at the very least, swept. They'll say Louis. I mean, they should not have gone 7, and I think they know that. So, I think they'll take care of business against Dallas. But I think it will go 6 though. Okay, I think Dallas is still look. You got a very solid Dallas squad. Ollinger's, it's a solid goalie for them. He's been doing it a long time. Jason Robertson's been really good too. Matt Duchene as well. So yeah, I think this is going to go 6. I think I got Winnipeg, winning there, and it looks like they are. Yeah, they are going to be traveling to Winnipeg. So thank goodness. That's about Turner. I mean,
Yeah, I know. Even though the games, at least the first couple of games, are on ESPN, so I got Winnipeg in 7. So I think it's going to be another long series. So it's all going to be about nutrition and who can stand the tallest and who's going to take the least amount of penalties. I think surprisingly, it's going to get very physical between these two in this series.
all right. Like I said, the first game between Florida and Toronto is tonight on ESPN at 7 o'clock.
Of course, Tuesday schedule looks like this: Hurricanes Capitals game 1, followed by Oilers and Golden Knights game 1. Both those game 1s are tomorrow night at 6 p.m. and 8:30 p.m. respectively on ESPN.
On Wednesday, Florida and Toronto game 2 there at 6 o'clock, and of course game 1 of the Dallas Winnipeg series will be at 8:30 on ESPN. They will be there up there in Winnipeg, so don't have to worry about a virtual calling there.
And of course, another doubleheader on Thursday on ESPN starting at 6 o'clock with game 2 between LaKeena's Carolina Hurricanes and the Washington Capitals, followed by game 2 of the Edmonton Vegas Golden Knights series. And that's at 8:30.
And that's your schedule for this weekend Stanley Cup playoffs. This is Second City Sports on Sports Chicago. LaKeena, McGee, Sidney Brown with you, and some breaking NFL news to share with you all. Matt Stafford and the Rams, they finally have agreed on terms of his new contract. He'll earn $44 million this year, with $4 million already paid. He'll lock in another $40 million. He was on the books for $58 million over 2 years. Anyway, now it's going to be $84 million over those next 2 years. So, look. I mean, the Rams, did very well last year. They won the NFC West. They gave Philly all they could handle in the divisional round. I think, if they can make they had a really solid draft too. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. But yeah, it looks like Stafford's gonna be around for a couple years to get another ring.
Yeah, and shout out to the front office for the Rams for getting that done. In particular, Les Snead and owners F. Stan Kroenke. So congratulations to them. As we said, for the last couple of years, a healthy Matthew Stafford and a healthy offensive line. Now mine is Jonah Jackson, who's here in Chicago. Those two are healthy. The Rams can go a lot of places. We talked about their defense with Bobby Brown last year, replacing Aaron Donald. So their defense came to life toward the end of last year. But a healthy offensive line along with a healthy Matthew Stafford, it could take a long way. So the Rams, if healthy, they'll be in it with San Francisco. I don't know about Seattle, and Arizona could be a surprise team coming out of the NFC West. We'll talk about that as training camp nears, but it's at the least it's going to be a very competitive NFC West, and the Rams should be the favorites, at least on paper.
Well, yeah, San Francisco may have something to say about that. They've made some moves during the offseason as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in that division. Of course, Jared Verse, of course, unfortunately, he got hurt near the end of the season. They could have used him against Philadelphia. Maybe they would have won that game, but again, that's kind of revisionist history there. So we'll see what happens there. But going to the not first. Shout out to Scottie Scheffler, who just dominated the field down there in Houston at the Byron Nelson Classic, minus 31 under par, which that's a rare score. The course is playing very easy there. So. But yeah, I know our girl Christy Man from Kansas was very happy about that. Scheffler gets his first win of the season. Looks like he's starting to get going. He finished in the top 10 at the Masters a couple of weeks ago, and with the PGA Championship coming up in a couple of weeks, he's starting to get hot at the right time. So maybe the rest of the league, the tour better watch out, I guess.
Assuming that Rory McIlroy is going to play in that tournament, I think he's going to have some competition there. I'm talking about Scheffler.
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to be at Quail Hollow down in North Carolina, so that should be a fun matchup coming up in next weekend. Yeah,
like I said, Rory plays the competition field just got a little bit better.
Should be a fun matchup coming up. Like I said, he was right there, of course, a couple of weeks ago in another tournament. So, Rory was good. Rory's going to have something to say about that, too. So, it should be a fun PGA Championship. We'll preview that coming up next week. Now, real quick to the Kentucky Derby. Congrats to Sovereignty. he outdueled journalism. No jokes here, folks. For the Kentucky Derby on Saturday, in a thriller. They were the two favorites, so it's only fitting that those two would battle it out in a soggy Churchill Downs. It was very soggy there, but the horses, they got their footing going, so we'll see if he can win the Triple Crown. But some of the big news here is that going to coincide with the sports media news. They were shout out to Mike Tirico too, because I know he got a peanut. He ate some of the peanuts. He has a nut allergy, and of course, Ahmed Fassan, did a great job, pitching in for him and did a really solid job there. But some of the sports media, the score side of sports media news, the NBA on NBC, they really hyped that throughout that broadcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know if you saw the commercials that they had online. Various players and, of course, other entertainers that represent NBC was singing that theme song.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, so I remember when the original came out before the 1990-91 season. It wasn't obviously nothing close to this. So like you said, they rolled out the red carpet. They officially announced that Carmelo Anthony is going to be one of the analysts coming up this coming season. I don't know if you checked out his podcast, LaKeena, over the last couple of years. It's very good. So.
Oh yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah. So I'm not surprised that he's gotten this analyst job. So I hope that we wish him the best, and I think he'll be a great contributor to NBC's coverage. I just hope that Jalen Rose, who's done great work returning this year, pitching, hitting in so far in these playoffs. I hope that Amazon or Peacock will hire him as an analyst, and not at the desk, but during the game. So Jalen Rose has been doing a very good job. Of course, he was part of those ESPN layouts a couple of years ago. So hopefully NBC or Amazon picks him up for next season. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'm wondering, does Warner Bros. Discovery have plans for him doing their college hoops coverage, because they've expanded their college hoops service and they might use him for that.
Probably, if he doesn't get picked up, probably.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. That's going to be the plan B for him. And I've heard Carmelo's podcast. People forget he has a very engaging personality. It's very funny. So I can see why they did hire him to be their main analyst. I think he'll do just fine in that role. And yeah, like it's they got the I saw the commercial too. They had Mariska Hargitay, of course, from SVU, and Michael Bublé, of course, who was one of the judges and the coaches, coach, I should say, not judge, but he's one of the coaches on The Voice. They had all their NBC family stars. I saw the Real Housewives doing the
and that old I think 2014 clip from SNL. That was still very funny. I know it's not as funny as it used to be, but that clip was very funny.
Yes.
I want to dunk it. Da, 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 da. It's a basketball. I want to dunk it.
And look, it was great to see John Test now with sporting the white hair, the gray hair now. So
yes, those are long days from Entertainment Tonight.
Oh yeah, so yeah, he's good. Yeah, he's up. I think he's got to be in his 70s now. I think, right? So it's showing.
I wonder how much he got paid to do this song, because I think he got paid $5 or $6 million when NBC debuted over 35 years ago. So I wonder how much that pay was. I know it had to be double, at least triple now.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I think I'll even say quadruple. I think, because that's a very.
I hope so.
Because remember, Fox was using that theme too. Because I'm wondering, will Fox still use that theme for their college coverage? They may not anymore. So yeah, they may have to do their old NFL thing that they use, just punch up a little bit. They might have to do that, but yeah.
Yep. Anything else, LaKeena, that need to get off your chest before we do this shortened edition of Old School TV Monday?
No, that's I think we got we talked about NBC, blah blah blah. The NFL draft. The NFL draft. The 2027 NFL draft will be in Washington D.C. They made that news
right.
about an hour ago. So.
Yep. So, and they're trying to get a new stadium too. I'm talking about the Washington Commanders. So in that district, the RFK district. So we'll see what happens with that. One more question before we close out with Old School TV Monday. Did the numbers come out yet for both the NHL and the NBA playoffs games from over the weekend? Did the numbers come out yet?
Not just yet, but I'm knowing that they'll probably have it out as soon as we get off. So
because they're at least in hockey, they were both great game sevens. Of course, Colorado lost to Dallas in a heartbreaker. And of course, we had that spectacular story book finish last night with the Winnipeg St. Louis contest.
Yeah, I'm sure the Rays did. I know the week before it got good raise, so I don't see why they wouldn't get good raise because they were both Game 7. So yeah, I think they should be. It should be okay. So yeah, I think yeah. Like, well, they'll probably they won't at least till we get off. So, but yeah. So we'll
I
see
wonder who won the night last night. Is it the NBA or NHL? Because I heard someone say this morning. The NBA execs were relieved that the Warriors won last night, even though it wasn't a competitive game. They pulled away in the fourth quarter. I think some of the NBA executives were relieved when the Warriors won last night. Even though they faced in Minnesota, you still have Steph Curry, you still have Draymond, you still have Jimmy Butler. So, but you casual watchers, you can watch those three, and I think the NBA will be very happy with that.
Yeah, especially now that LeBron and Luka are been eliminated. So
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, they're gonna be cheering for the Warriors in that series because remember they got the Western Conference final. Coming up the Turner does. I know they want to have a good matchup as
But
they
Turner's
go
had
out.
the East this year.
Oh, they do. Oh, okay, my bad. So
Yeah, I think they have the East this year. So yeah.
Okay, well in that case they should be okay then. Yeah, because they look. I mean they got 4 top markets. So there you go. But yeah, but real quick, Will Hardy, the coach for the Jazz, he got a new contract extension from 2031. So the Jazz, I mean, they've been okay. I mean, they haven't been bad, but they're kind of like in this. But look, he's a young coach. He sees a gravitate to a role with the players. So okay, congrats to him.
Yeah, they got Kessler and they have Laurie Marketing, so that you can start off with that. Imagine the Cooper flag goes to the Utah Jazz.
Oh boy,
I think Danny Ainge will be happy, obviously, but will
Yeah.
the rest of the league be happy? I don't know.
Yeah, real quick, Michigan's Sharon Moore has been suspended for 2 games, for the I guess for the extra recruiting stuff that happened a couple of years ago. So they gave him a 2-year.
Oh, the whole Jim Harbaugh foolishness.
Yeah. Of course, they'll be against Central Michigan and Nebraska, respectively. So
He can just sit at home with his feet up, like, yeah, I get a game plan coming up when I get back. So yeah.
Well, the idea is that they'll play Oklahoma week 2, so they of course he's not gonna pick that game. So
right.
So and that's his alma mater. He played there, so
How convenient.
Yeah. So yeah, but I got that's about it. I got.
All right. During this time, every Monday, we like to close out the show with Old School TV Monday. And we like to feature specials from the sports and entertainment world. And this week, LaKeena had to pivot a little bit, especially with the NBA playoffs getting going, and of course with the news, with the NBC getting John Tesh's theme song over the weekend. I want to talk about the adult in the room. Of course, I'm talking about NBA Action. Of course, the weekly show with the showcase news highlights of the NBA. The show premiered in 1990 on ESPN. It currently airs on NBA TV with new episodes airing at 5:30 p.m. Central Standard Time every Thursday night during the season. It features Western Conference Team of the Week, instant replay of weekly NBA news, timeout with player features, Eastern Conference Team of the Week, encore showing the showcasing the best players during the week that didn't make the courtside countdown, including buzzer beaters, long range shots, alley-oops, assists, dunks, circus shots, and blocks. The spotlight features special long form on players, teams, or great moments in the NBA. Sounds of the game, of course, the world famous courtside countdown showcasing the top 10 plays, dunks, buzzer beaters, assists, and block shots during the week. Of course, we couldn't have mentioned this show without the late great Jim Fagan, who did movie trailers and other shows throughout the years. He was the narrator of the show from 1990 from its inception until 2004. Of course, he was followed by friend of the show Spiro Ditas from 2004 to 2005. Of course, Iron Eagle will be the new voice of the NBA on Amazon coming up next season. Of course, he still does the Brooklyn Nets games. He took over in 2005 and still does a great job now. Of course, as I mentioned, you can see the episodes weekly on NBA TV. Now, of course, back in the day, of course, if you're in Chicago and most other markets too, it was on your local sports regional networks. Of course, here in Chicago, it was on Sports Channel for many years, Saturdays at noon. Of course, when it switched over to Fox Sports Net. And of course, when NBA TV picked up this coverage to do NBA games, it switched to over there where it is now. LaKeena, as I said it before, I'll say it again. I said it just a second ago. It was the adult version of NBA Inside Stuff because that show was also produced by NBA Entertainment. And some of the segments that you saw on Inside Stuff, you saw on NBA Action as well. I loved watching it because it was some stuff they showed on there that didn't show on Inside Stuff. Because remember Inside Stuff, which we did before, Or go back a few years. Inside Stuff was that fun, loving show.
Yeah.
That was not just your normal sports show. It was a whole lot of fun, whole lot of entertainment, and you got the fun side of the NBA. NBA action was well balanced. You got the serious stuff and you got the fun stuff as well. So NBA action is I call it the adult version of Inside Stuff, but it was a great show and it still is. You can see it, as I said, right now on NBA TV.
The more sophisticated version of Inside Stuff, as I call it. And yeah, it's a replay, of course, which I love. That was one of my favorites. They always have like encores. They always show the best plays, whether it's buzzer beaters, great alley oops, great dunks and key blocks. That kind of stuff was really kind of what made me watch it. I remember the version with Jim Fagan when I was around the time we first started cable, and I saw this. I was like, okay, this is a cool, like more sophisticated version. Of course, God rest his soul, Mr. Fagan there. But like I said, Spiro did it for a couple of years. Of course, Eagles been doing it since 05, and it was really, it still is sort of like that it kind of gives you that little, it sort of caters toward people like us, Sid, a little bit slightly older. I said slightly older. And of course, you got the more like the younger crowd too. So it still rates very well among that. For the YouTube crowd, this is a perfect balance for it. So yeah, it was one of my favorite shows. I still watch it occasionally, but yeah, it's if you're an NBA fan that just likes gets like the meat and potatoes of the plays and the features and stuff like that, this is a show for you.
Yep, and it goes behind the scenes as well, which they started back in the day as well. So we'd like to close out Old School TV Monday for this the first edition for the month of May, saluting the NBA Entertainment's NBA Action. LaKeena, take us home.
You can follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, executes me on the IG.
Shout out Brandon Schultz. We see you in the chat. Hope you're doing well.
You're making a house.
Hope you're doing well. Tell as usual, tell everybody about our show. Hope thank you for your support. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80. Be sure to download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms. Please subscribe to our podcast. We are located at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And while you're at it, please give War Media a follow at WARR Media on all social media platforms. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Be sure to catch Second City Sports live in living color every Monday, every Friday from 12:15 to 2:15 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Sports Zone Chicago. One more again, as the kids would say. Be sure to catch Second City Sports live in living color every Monday, every Friday from 12:15 to 2:15 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
And you can catch replays of all of our great content here on Sports Zone Chicago. Our show, Sean and Maya, the Smoke Fellas, and other great content and shows and podcasts we got online on whatever you get your podcasts on Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels. Like I said, you catch replays of our show, Sean and Maya, the Smoke Fellas, What's Up Cuz, and so much more. You get Sports Zone Chicago anytime, anywhere where you can get your on Facebook and YouTube on Sports Zone Chicago's pages.
And we will provide.
We also want to thank our good friend of the show, Chris Boden from WGNTV Chicago, for joining us today. Always insightful, always fun, and we gotta get him on more often. I know I'm glad we were able to work it out, but yeah, we gotta get him on more often. His insights are just incredible.
Yeah. So that's why he's been a professional in terms of Chicago sports broadcasting here for a long time. Not to age him or anything, but he's been doing great work both on TV and radio for a long time. Yeah, and that's why we love having him on the show.
Yeah, he was only 12, folks. He was only 12 years old when he first started. He was only 12. He was only 12, yeah. Age or anything. But so enjoy all the. I know WNBA, they're starting their preseason, continue their preseason, so you can check those games out on ION and ESPN. Of course, you got baseball. Of course, you got the playoffs in both the NBA and NHL, and so much more. So enjoy all the games and the matches coming up. For Sid, I'm LaKeena with Second City Sports on Sports Chicago. Be safe out there. We'll see you guys Friday.
Holla!